All right, Tom, we're talking about your new ebook, History of Vancouver Rock and Roll, available at all the usual places. First of all, let's start with you. When did you get your start covering music for the province?
In the province, 1979. I've been there a long time.
So you've seen them come and go pretty good then, eh?
Yeah, pretty much. From that time on, it seems like a real blur. I mean, one of the challenges of writing the book was just to stir my memory, because it all kind of like folded into one thing, and then, oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, and one thing led to another, and suddenly this thing I was worried about, this telling of a story, all kind of came together and made sense. So because I just one thing, one memory led to another memory, and all of a sudden this blur that I was worried about sort of opened up in front of me, became clear. I hope.
Now, what exactly inspired you to write the book? I guess an absence of anything else like it committed to paper, or what?
Well, something like that. Also, over the years, I've been asked, when are you going to write your book? Well, I hadn't really thought about what I would do, and then it just made sense that I would write about something that was close to me, and that was the development of Vancouver rock and roll, because I basically was here from the beginning. I saw it all on the sidelines, and so I was there to report on it. And and the fact that there wasn't such a book, to answer your question, I'd read a lot of histories of the development of Canadian rock and roll, and it all started in Toronto with Ronnie Hawkins coming up from Arkansas with his band, and but Vancouver developed completely differently from that, and no one had told that story.
It's interesting you bring that up, because there was a CBC documentary series years ago about the history of rock and roll, and it always starts with Cabbagetown and Ronnie Hawkins and the band, and then you have people like Red Robinson, whose whole end of the story is ignored, and then I guess this is the first time that it's been told from the West Coast perspective, and the very different scene that evolved here. Yeah,
because we developed on our own. We developed completely differently from that, and it was a real DJ-driven belief. I mean, they, because they were believers, they knew there was an audience here, and they tapped right into it, and it was undeniable at that point.
And we probably had just as good people coming out of here on the broadcast side with Red and Fred Latrimo and Terry David Mulligan. I guess you get into all that as well?
Well, yeah. It's amazing how many of those people were headhunted by Red. I mean, Red saw some talent there, and they developed the talent. They were allowed to develop, and Red popped into a lot of different radio stations. Actually, he seems to come up quite frequently in the very beginning. So he was very, and when you talk to some of the singers and performers from around that era, they really respected and admired Rez, and so I mean it was a lot of the development of Vancouver rock was down to a few believers like Red Robinson and Les Vogt and a few other people. I mean, that was one of the easiest things for me to write about. I mean, because these people left their footprints. They made a difference, and it was a lot easier from the vantage point of, say, 40 or 50 years later to see the differences they made than it was to try to figure out who's going to be important in this century, in this decade, because, I mean, so much it's really hard to predict the future. It's a lot easier to assess the past, which is, a large part of the book. It's kind of selfish in that way. I mean, I wrote about things that affected me, And you know, one of the things that affected me was the coming of FM radio. I thought that was a real big deal. And as a kid coming from Winnipeg, I was in high school, and I landed right in the middle of a real debate between what we called the freshies, and the greasers. The greasers before they became known as hippies. And I firsthand witnessed how the freshies wanted like an R&B band, a black horn band, a black-fronted horn band, and they were in opposition to the greasers, who wanted more of the Grateful Dead style jamming bands and stuff, blues oriented bands, and there's a real culture change there, and I got to witness that, and again, that stuff hasn't really been told. I mean, how Vancouver went from this to that, and that's what I tried to do. I mean, and like I said, it was very selfish in that these are the things that were important to me as growing up.